Today we're going to explore 3 hikes in Zion National Park. The first one being the Canyon Lookout Trail, which is 1 mile. The second being the Watchman Trail, which is about 3 miles round trip. And the last one being the Narrows. I'm going to explain a little bit later on about how to get to the Narrows, and I'm going to explain the gear that you need to use when you're hiking through the Narrows. I will also explain where you could get that gear. And on this map, there's going to be a red arrow pointing to the left-hand side. That's the side that you will have to use the shuttle to get to the Narrows trailhead. And I'm going to go up through Mystery Canyon and Orderville Canyon, which will be the narrowest part of the trail. So the narrow canyon will be right there, which will be Orderville Canyon. Now on to the first hike. So the first hike is actually accessible by vehicle, and this will be the Canyon Overlook Trail. So this trail is pretty short, it's only 1 mile, and there's a map showing you the picture of the trail and the stair steps that you will take up to get to the overlook view. So this is just a very scenic hike. You can see the highway down there and a set of stairs you will climb, and then you will look down into the canyon, and there's actually some pools down there. You can't really see it in the video, but in person you can see it. And there are some guardrails right here. So this hike is steep, but it's not too scary. It's at least wide enough to avoid any type of falls or slips. And you will pass this fencing through the hike and just sweeping views of the sandstone mountains. And another lookout view right here. The drop off right there. And just more scenic views, and you will pass up through a cave on your way to the canyon overlook. There is the bridge I came up through, and another bridge that you will go up through. So this cave is pretty neat. It does provide shade, especially if you do this in the late spring or summer. And down there is the bridge that you drive through to get to the trailhead. You can see it down there. And you could just see the sandstone carvings along the mountains, and just more scenic landscape views of the hike. And I am approaching the overlook. So right here is the canyon overlook, and you just get these sweeping views. Down there is the highway you can see, and there's a rock right there you could stand on. Just don't get too close to the edge. I did see a guy lay down on one of these rocks, and he was really close to the edge, and I was just thinking, don't get any closer, so just be very careful. And this is another look of the canyon. So this is a beautiful hike. It's short and it's sweet. And then I'm going to head down to the visitor center and do the Watchman hike. So this hike is about 3 miles round trip, and you could just park your car here, so you don't need to take the shuttle to get to the trailhead. And right here is a map just showing you where the visitor center's at. And you could come to the visitor center for information. You could ask the park rangers about the conditions, and you could also pick up a permit here if you plan to do either the subway or the Angels Landing Trail. And that right there is where you would take the shuttle now onto the trail, the Watchman Trail. So it starts out as a paved path, and you just witness more landscape shots of the sandstone red mountains. And right here is the Virgin River, which we will explore later on in this video. And right now you could witness these beautiful fall colors radiating throughout the park. And you will cross this street, which is where you will enter the stair steps. So while this is only around 300 feet of elevation gain, it still feels pretty steep. But you do get the scenic shots as you make your way up. And up there somewhere, there's going to be a ledge we're going to climb up to. And that's where the Watchman Overlook will be, or the viewpoint. So there is a good amount of traffic on this trail. And you could always just stop by these trees and just sit down and admire the landscape and take in the scenery as you do this hike. So that's the ledge up there, which is where we're trying to get to. And there are some switchbacks on this hike, but nothing too crazy. And there are some oak trees, and you could just see all the fall colors coming through the oaks. So while this is a desert climate, it does have trees, it does have water. So it's not a full-blown desert, but with the cactus and the red rock formations, it definitely has that desert climate. And right here you get more shade and just more views of the sandstone mountains. And as we turn this corner right here, you can see some cactus there on the right side. And right here is going to take us to the viewpoint. And I am approaching the Watchman Overlook. And we have arrived to the Watchman Overlook. And you could just see down there, you can see the canyon. And there's the parking lot down there. So this is just a beautiful hike. It's short, it's sweet, and you could do both the Watchman and the Canyon Overlook in a day easily, because they are both short hikes. And just, you could see the meadow down there. And the second day, I had to stop at Dion Outfitters to pick up a wetsuit and a stick, and you could rent that for $55 before you do the Narrows, which is where this trail will start. So the Narrows, I'm gonna do about 4 to 5 miles round trip of the Narrows, and my goal is to get to Waterville Canyon, which is one of the first sections of the Narrows that is super narrow and one of the most scenic sections of the video that you'll see on this hike. And you will walk along the Virgin River. Right now we are doing the hike through Riverside Walk, and we will merge onto the Virgin River. So I highly recommend you renting the wetsuit at Xeon Outfitters because the water gets really cold. And I did see everybody that did this hike with me had that wetsuit on. And you will see the beautiful fall colors as you get close to the Virgin River. And you will get these towering walls on the right and left side of the hike, so you will have plenty of shade. And right here is the beginning of the Narrows hike. So the water starts out about ankle deep, but there's going to be a section on this hike where the water is going to go up to my chest, and that's about as high as it got for me on this hike. Now, even though the wetsuit does keep you dry for the most part, your clothes will still get a little bit wet, but they won't get as wet if you didn't have the suit on. So just keep that in mind. And they do provide you with wet shoes as well, and wet socks. So some parts of this hike do have a path, and I'm approaching the section with the deepest part, and there are some currents on this hike. And this right here is as deep as it gets. So right here, this is about where my chest is at, but it's only temporary. So there's only like 1 or 2 spots that are like that on this hike. The rest are usually up to about your knees. So right here, you can see the Mystery Canyon Falls. It's a bit dried up right now, but there is some water coming down, and you can just see the sandstone carvings on the wall. And another section where there is a brief trail, and you can just see all these beautiful holes coming up through the Virgin River along the rocks, and it's just very beautiful. And the way the water is just radiating through the river is just amazing. You can see all the rocks coming through the river. So I'm getting pretty close to the Orderville Canyon, which is going to be the narrowest part of this hike for me. And you can see the canyon start to close in as we get closer. And we're going to reach a point where there's going to be a fork. So I'm actually approaching the section where they have that fork. And this right here is going to be the fork. So there is going to be right here, which is going to be the right side, and that's going to be the left side. So we're going to go right there, and that'll take us to Orderville Canyon. So this was the narrowest part of the Narrows that I did, and probably the best part. And this part provides you with a lot of shade, and it just looks amazing. Just the way the sandstone carvings and these rocks are, it's just breathtaking. So, and it doesn't get too deep when you're walking through the canyon right here. And right here is probably one of the most beautiful sections that I found on this hike, which was right here. And it pretty much just stops right there at the end. And at that point, I pretty much just turned back around. And I hope you enjoyed this hike. Don't forget to like and subscribe.